In writing nonfiction, the choice of a subject is of the first importance. For nonfiction, unlike fiction, is usually sold before it is written. The author has to sell his bare idea to the editor before it has been dressed in the charms of literary form or style. And this means that the subject must manifestly be a good one, or it will never be approved and published at all. Moreover, the range of possible subject matter is so vast, including, as it does, all knowledge, that the danger of choosing unwisely is considerable. The difficulty lies in the fact that although the reader cannot see the world truly through the veil of his desires, he tends to ignore everything that is not somehow connected with his desires. Other things are not, to him, interesting. Somehow we have to overcome this difficulty. It may be overcome, for though our reader will not eat unleavened bread, he is willing to eat bread that has been leavened. It is our task to understand the difference between dough and yeast, and to learn how these may be combined to make the bread our reader likes. This is a valid distinction, not always understood between subject and subject matter. The distinction is not only valid, but important. For the writer who is successful in making the two march along together will be fortunate, while conflict between the two may make things very difficult. By subject matter, we mean the things and people about which an author writes. For example, aviation, the French Revolution, domestic difficulties, young love, animals, or seafaring. This general subject matter may be anything, provided the author loves it, feels at home in it, is interested enough in it to learn all he can about it, and to take the pains to make his reader enjoy it too. The author who commands such a field of human interest and uses it consistently also has the advantage of a steady market for readers who like that sort of thing. They will remember him as the purveyor of stories about that subject matter, and will look out for his work, knowing that they can always depend upon him to please them. In finding such a general subject, the author is lucky if he hits upon one already endeared to the public by writers who have labored before him. That is why the classics are for the most part composed of folklore. Folklore is simply subject matter which has been processed already, tried out on the dog a million times, written and rewritten, told and retold, until it has achieved a form that is surefire in its appeal. The reader's mind is hair-trigger in its reaction to such material. A touch is enough to arouse interest. Of course, fresh material may be handled so that it too becomes accepted, though that generally takes time and patience. When Jack London first attempted to sell stories of the Northwest, he found no ready market waiting and had to sell his Call of the Wild for a song. Nowadays, one need not be a Jack London to sell Northwest stories. The public has been created and a market exists. Northwest stories are staple literary wares. So it is with other subjects. Thus, if a man were to write of France, he would probably meet with most success if he chose the period of the French Revolution, since, in addition to its dramatic events and its connection with American history, it has been written about so often that readers are all prepared to understand and enjoy it. Just so, in American history, the Civil War offers better material than the War of 1812. Actually, the subject matter may be no better, but it is far more saleable because the public is already interested, already understands the background. Of course, not every writer can pick and choose at will. He must use what rouses his own imagination. For, unless his imagination moves freely among his materials, he will turn out inferior work. And his imagination cannot move freely among things in which he has no spontaneous interest, things for which he has no strong feeling. Naturally, he will feel more at home in what he knows well, though knowledge of the subject matter is of less importance than a profound interest in it. Editors, publishers, and misguided friends will forever be trying to get a writer away from the subject matter that interests him, urging him to turn his hand to matters that interest them. They may regret his passion for the American Indian and solemnly assure him that he ought to write about the Malays. But if he is wise, he will thank them and stick to his last. The imagination is not to be ordered about like a servant. The man who writes equally well on all subjects is a journalist. So much for subject matter. Now to consider the author's subject, a very different thing, and one more intimately his own. This subject may be compared to the grain of sand which gets into an oyster and forms the irritating nucleus of a pearl. It is seldom that the author chooses it. Rather, it chooses him, inhabits him, and may remain with him throughout life. Every piece of work he turns out has or lacks quality according to the degree in which this intimate subject appears in it. Fortunately for those who wish to write, nearly every human being has a grain of sand in him somewhere. Something ails him. Something. A frustration, inhibition, disillusionment, shame, fear, distress, or mere fixation. Any of these will do very nicely provided the author has the wit to handle it. For literature is the notation of the human heart, and without that grain of sand to set the writer going, there would be nothing to read, nothing written. Subject matter is only the raw material through which the intimate subject works. Nowadays, when everyone has a smattering of psychological knowledge, it is not difficult to discover the intimate subject of a writer. It appears in every good piece of work he turns out, sometimes openly, sometimes masked in various disguises. The author's best passages, his most memorable scenes or ideas, will always be found to turn on this intimate subject. Thus, when a man writes well of the French Revolution, he may be actually expressing his undying, because unsatisfied resentment of some bully who beat him up as a lad. When he writes of the exposure of the corrupt politician, he may be unconsciously dramatizing the theft of his beloved tricycle. If, like Edgar Allan Poe, he was shocked when he saw his mother shut up in her coffin, he will suffer from claustrophobia and write well of situations wherein people are walled up or buried alive. When he produces a thriller about a haunted house, it is probably because as a child he had to go to bed in the dark, and so with painful or happy events of later life. They all come out in the wash as intimate subjects. Thus it appears that the intimate subject is, as it were, the soul of the author's work, while the subject matter is only the flesh and blood. Both should belong and work together if the work is to be a masterpiece. Sometimes life deprives the writer of his intimate subject, and so brings his career to an untimely end. A man who suffered because he was poor and disregarded may, when he becomes rich and famous, find that his former feeling has evaporated, that his intimate subject has vanished, and that the soul and life of his work is gone. All he has left is the wretched subject matter, a dead thing which refuses to be resuscitated. Humpty Dumpty cannot be put together again. On the other hand, some writers whose grain of sand inspired happier feelings may go on writing until they die, adding more readers to their string with every year, since every success only convinces them the more that their positive faith is justified. Of course, a man may choose deliberately his general subject matter, and so through study of it, get interested until it becomes a passion with him. His intimate subject, however, is outside his conscious will. He must make the most of whatever intimate subject life has given him. If he finds that his best work turns on the struggle of pride versus fear, he will have sense enough to choose general subject matter in which such a struggle will naturally take place. He cannot change his intimate subject, but he can provide it with a general subject matter in which it may show to best advantage, or at any rate use the general subject matter at hand so as to make the most of it. To do anything else would be stupid. Fortunately, almost any subject matter can be made to serve the purpose, and it is probably better to adopt, rather than throw overboard the subject matter already on hand. Thus, your general subject matter is, as it were, dough. Your intimate subject is yeast. You must use both to make bread, fact with passion. Now in fiction, this passion, this emotion, is always that of a character in the story. But in nonfiction, the emotion is that of the writer. That is why it is so necessary that you write about something that interests and excites you. For where your task is to serve your materials hot, you will not and cannot succeed if there is no fire in you. You must always write of what is cooking. Your reader will not accept anything served cold. Probably it will be best not to worry too much about your intimate subject, particularly after you have discovered what it is. Rather, let your mind dwell upon the general subject matter. Dream about that, and you may find the intimate subject taking hold of those raw materials, shaping them to its own purpose, and making them go along without trouble. If not, then is the time to use a little discipline and make sure that the intimate subject has its opportunity. Then your work will have the follow-through, the drive and swing that make it a delight, a real self-expression. You will give the reader both barrels. There is nothing he likes so much. Give him, as they say, the works, your works. To do that, you must gather the materials you need. Not every writer knows how to go about this, but it is really a rather simple matter if you will only consider what you are reading for. That's it for today. If you enjoyed this video, I suggest you to subscribe to the channel so that you will be notified when new videos are out. Also, you might want to check our link in the description, where you'll find many other fundamental advertising and psychology books in different languages. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again in the next video.